Rivet games don't have a good reputation in the TSW community, and rightly so, but there are two routes in their back catalogue that I don't mind. And ironically, one of them is my favourite TSW route. The other one is the Fife Circle Line, and I figured it would be worth revisiting this route following a recent update. The Fife Circle add-on was first released for TSW4 in March 2024, and the version compatible with TSW5 costs 57 New Zealand dollars at full price. Even though I've come to expect such a high price these days, that doesn't make it any less annoying. As for route coverage, the original route featured a total of 52 miles, or 84 kilometres of track, starting out from Edinburgh Waverley and going north to Markinch via Burnt Island and Kirkcaldy, but you also get the loop line going via Dunfermline and Kirkcaldy. More recently, in November 2024, Rivet added the Levenmouth extension as a free update for people who already own the existing route. I dare say there would have been a huge uproar from the community if the update was payware even for existing owners, as if people didn't already have enough reasons to dislike Rivet. But just because the update is free of charge, that doesn't mean it's free of criticism. In any case, and as far as I know, the Levenmouth update is not coming to the TSW version, only TSW5, and when the add-on's made compatible with subsequent sequels, of course, assuming Dovetail keeps up this ridiculous annual release thing. As for the real Levenmouth branch, it's not a brand new line, but rather a reopened line that originally closed to passengers in 1969 and to freight in 2001. The branch leaves the main line between Kirkcaldy and Markinch, and runs for 5 miles, or 8 kilometres, to the terminus at Leven, with another new station at Cameron Bridge. This extension opened in June 2024. Besides the addition of the Leven branch, the update released on November 21 also included a list of fixes to the route itself and the included rolling stock. I was surprised by just how long the fix list was, even though this is Rivet games we're talking about. Although I didn't notice too many of the problems mentioned in that fix list, it's still pretty ridiculous that the route was ever allowed out to release with so many problems still present. Even though I shouldn't be surprised about developers rushing content at this point, as sad as that is to say. For whatever reason, the new Levenmouth Rail Link livery for the Class 158, which was announced by Skyhook not too long ago, wasn't released alongside the Fife Circle update, and we didn't get it until the 18th of December, when it was released as part of another update. Only one train is included with this route, but she was at least new to TSW with Fife Circle instead of being reused from a previous add-on, which is what ATS are doing for their Manchester route. Go figure. Anyway, this is the Class 170 Turbostar, a diesel multiple unit whose design dates back to 1998. The 170s have a top speed of 100 miles per hour, which makes them suitable for regional and long-distance services. But the Fife Circle route mainly has this unit running shorter distance commuter services. Overall, I think Rivet's rendition of the Class 170 is tolerable at best and disappointing at worst. I like the well-detailed passenger saloon and cab interior, not to mention the ScotRail Saltire livery, but I can't help thinking something is a little bit off where the modelling of the cab front is concerned. The same goes for the engine audio, and speaking of which, here's a demonstration of the Class 170's horn and prime mover sounds as she pulls away from Dalmeny station. The other major issue I have with the 170 in TSW is the unit displaying the wrong numbers for the variant of headlight clusters that Rivet modelled. In real life, units 17401 through 17424, plus 17470 and 17471, have the smaller Phase 1 lights, not the larger Phase 2s. The TSW version should be displaying unit numbers from the 17425 to 17434, 17450 to 17461, and 17472 to 17478 ranges. Following the release of the Leven update, Fife Circle's timetable has 175 playable services for the Class 170, but at the time of this video's production, there are still no services here for the ScotRail Class 158, and you can't use the 170 on empty stock moves to and from Haymarket Depot. I get the whole thing about being patient for services for the Class 158, but it's been 4 months since the ScotRail variant was released, and I find it strange that Skyhook went ahead and released the 158 anyway, despite the Fife Circle services not being ready. Come to think of it, considering the fact that ScotRail Express just got some big timetable updates, why has Fife Circle not got the same treatment? As for the existing services, these are much the same as what we had before the Leven update, with 170s only ever running solo and never coupled in pairs to make 6-car trains, for whatever reason. In any case, you can run the stoppers to Codenbeath or Glenrothes with Thornton, going via Dunfermline, and the regional services to Dundee or Perth via Kirkcaldy, which you can only drive as far as Markinch. On initial release, the services terminating at Codenbeath were completely absent from the timetable, and although they have since been added, it's still pretty ridiculous that the route was released with those services missing. But hey, that's our Rivet. As for trains on the Leven branch, these run once an hour in each direction throughout the day, taking 64 minutes to complete the journey from Edinburgh Waverley to Leven, and vice versa. Services to and from the reopened branch run via Kirkcaldy and stop at all stations except South Gyle. Class 170s do indeed run to Leven in real life, but so do the Class 158 sprinters. And another train that's currently missing from the Fife Circle timetable is the Class 43 HST in ScotRail Inter 7 Cities colours. In real life, the HSTs run hourly services from Edinburgh to Aberdeen, but they don't stop anywhere between Haymarket and Cooper. The latter is north of Markinch. If Dovetail had added the Class 800 alongside the Class 801 on ECML Peterborough to Doncaster, instead of only adding the 801, then the 800 could have had a timetable mode layer on Fife Circle to represent the LNER service to or from Aberdeen, which runs 4 times a day in each direction, with one service going to Leeds and the remainder to London King's Cross. I saw that the 801 now has a layer on the updated ScotRail Express timetable, and she's drivable between Edinburgh and Polmont, but LNER trains don't actually run through Polmont in real life. I should also mention just how out of place the Great Western HST looks on this route. I know that it's a layer to represent the ScotRail HSTs, but is it really too much to ask to get the proper Inter 7 Cities livery? The developers really seem to love their gameplay packs after all, and they should not have done this layer at all given the current lack of the Inter 7 Cities livery. That would be like putting the London Overground Class 710 on Great Western Express to represent the Crossrail Class 345. Meanwhile, as part of the mid-December update, we now have the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino layered at Edinburgh Waverley for AI-only services, but as far as I can tell, these are only on the ScotRail Express version. Why not Fife Circle as well? In any case, the only route on which you can drive the 390 is the questionable WCML London Euston to Milton Keynes, where this unit only takes 30 minutes to cover that full section. Meanwhile, the Class 385, which comes with the aforementioned Edinburgh to Glasgow route, has a timetable mode layer on Fife Circle, but for whatever reason, her services are playable between Edinburgh Waverley and Haymarket. As for ScotRail Express itself, while I like its status as a complete end-to-end route, it is still let down by being linear and fairly boring. On more recent journeys along the Fife Circle, I realised that the scenery is a little better than I thought it was, but it's still nothing to write home about, and it looks ugly when the season is set to autumn. Even in other seasons, a lot of the buildings and trees look very basic, and I noticed a few cases where, once again, there is just a flat grass texture with no proper foliage on it. While Fife Circle's scenery isn't as bad as West Cornwall Local or S-Bahn Central Schweiz, I think it doesn't really cut the mustard for a TSW route released in 2024. On the plus side, I think the station modelling is fine, with my favourite stations on this route being either North Queensferry, Aberdour, or Kinghorn. Other issues I've found throughout the route include, but are not limited to, this tree shadow at Leven having a seizure, multiple NPCs T-posing on the haters in a Class 170, and poor road details at Dunfermline City, with a ruddy streetlight on the road. No, not that kind of streetlight, you plum. That's better. How this slips through quality control, I have no idea. Meanwhile, there's also the lack of overhead wires on the tram line at Edinburgh Gateway, which still hasn't been fixed. And I noticed the route looking and feeling quite lifeless due to the rather Spartan rail scene, and Edinburgh Waverley is especially bad when it comes to feeling lifeless. However, things that I do like include the automated announcements aboard the Class 170, the experience of driving across the Forth Bridge, and getting to visit the brand new stations at Cameron Bridge and Leven. Thinking back to the issue of T-posing NPCs, it was apparently caused by an outdated mod. I think the specific mod was Leica's 170 Light Leak patch, based on the fact that I saw the NPCs sitting down normally after deleting the aforementioned patch. At the end of the day, and although the Fife Circle is let down by the borderline mediocre scenery, rather quiet rail scene, and incorrect numbers on the Class 170, I still think this is one of Rivet's better routes, partly because of its non-linear nature, not to mention the exciting run across the Forth Bridge. With the Levenmouth Rail Link update now live, I give the Fife Circle add-on for TSW a 6 out of 10.